So, have you ever been in the limbo of non failing and non succeeding? So, what is it about? There's a place, it's actually a dark place, where you're not succeeding at something, but you're also reckoning you're not failing either. So, what does that mean? You don't have enough information to assess whether you're failing or succeeding. So, this YouTube or any YouTube channel, for fact, it's actually in time, there's a place where the creator didn't know whether he was failing or succeeding at the set strategy or tactic or theme or topic or niche. So he had to persevere. He had to do the repetition, although he wasn't getting the feedback from marketplace of attention from other people, whether he's good or bad, whether he failed or succeeded. And that's probably one of the hardest parts of making anything, of making a business. And that's a very steep psychological price. And not everybody is willing to pay it. Of course, thank God. Not everybody is doing the same thing. But it's just as about as anything in life that's worth doing. Unless you're applying for a job and you have a contract and the employer tells you you're gonna do this, of course, it's gonna be really hard. Whether you're a freelancer, whether you're starting a company, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a CEO of a company, you're gonna have to set a direction and then stick to it until you get the first feedback information whether your course of action is right or wrong. And it's a hard voyage. It's a hard voyage because sometimes you will get some feedback from people who don't know nothing about fact. And then you will say, of course, the first second you're going to say, of course, I'm not going to listen to these people because they don't know what they're saying. They have no experiences. But then as you have no other feedback, in time, those voices in your head, of course, will become louder and louder. Although not real voices, although not real feedback, they will start to chew on your resilience. It happened to me when I started a couple of businesses, and it will happen to you as well. And it will probably not go away, but you should know that the first couple of times is the hardest, and then it gets a little bit easier. Not easy, but a little bit easier. Because you know not to listen to the wrong people, not to listen to the wrong feedback. As I was starting one of my companies, my mother said as a feedback, you should probably do this and this. You should probably, take on every client. You should probably take even low-paying clients. You should probably even do pro bono work. That means free work. And you should also, at the same time, take a look at other jobs because perhaps you should not be a lawyer, independent lawyer. You should just find a job. And I found it really a harsh and unnecessary feedback because I was like 3 months in and I knew that the feedback was around 3 to 6 months and she was giving me the feedback first month or second or third month. It doesn't even matter. And I had some feedback from clients. I didn't know how exactly to my rational feedback was. I didn't exactly know how rational the feedback from the client were because the client had the intention, had the inclination of perhaps even lying to me because they wanted a cheap service. And I, on the other hand, wanted to provide expensive service. So what I noticed is, of course, don't listen to people who are not in the shoes you want to be. That's a very, very strong advice. Next time you're in a position and somebody offers you advice, but they haven't been to the place you want to be, or they are not at this moment in the place where you are, so either not even the same space, industry, niche, whatever, don't listen to them. Just walk away. It will be much, much easier to you. Once you hear those feedback, even if you dispel as they're crazy, they will nibble on your resilience in time. And it will be harder for you to persevere. And you need to persevere because you need to get the quality feedback from the people who matter, from your customers, from your viewers, people who matter to you in terms of market share, not in terms of what your mother says about it. So don't listen to them. That's probably the best advice because if you do, it's going to nibble on you. So not failing is actually horrible also because if you didn't fail, you didn't get any feedback. Also, sometimes you're going to get a feedback of semi-failure and you're gonna have doubts about it. And that's okay. If you have doubts, think about it, repeat the iteration, repeat the experiment, repeat the sale. Don't change anything until you get another the iteration, another event. Because I had this same thing. I had a feedback that my prices were too high. And I was really skeptical about it because I read a lot of books and they were saying they were too low. And I've also had some kind of semi, indirect information about pricing from other people who were in the same niche. And they were saying, the same or a bit higher or a bit lower. And I was kind of skeptical of my customer feedback that their prices were too high, because even if I listen to all my peers saying they were either higher or lower or the same, that means they were around the same ballpark. So if my clients say they were too high, that means it's not objective feedback. It's something they were considering. And also, once I repeated the experiment with lower pricing, I noticed, just for instance, two things: that the amount of customers didn't change, but the quality of customers changed dramatically to the worse. So it was the feedback was false, and I was right. So what I needed to do is raise prices a bit and just don't listen to that kind of feedback. If I were young, if I were in that position now, after years and years of failing, I would have told myself, you should double the prices and just stick with it. I was going in the agony all these years, and I was always tiptoeing about the pricing. I should probably do doubling or tripling the price, and it would be much, much better for previous years. But I didn't do that. Still, what I'm trying to say, sometimes the feedback is either missing or it's incomplete or it's just not of that quality that you wish to do it. If you have any doubts in that kind of feedback, any doubts of that kind of failure, repeat it. Do the power of 10, do 10 repetitions. If the feedbacks, if the outputs are different or are all over the place, something is off. You should redirect. We should change the factors of the experiment, factors of what you were doing, and factors of the failure. You should try to change it and try to get a more stable result. Or you should try to analyze the data you have, because that's much easier if we have some solid data about who comes and what. In my experience, in my case, it was the problem that I didn't consider that each customer had a different price point, and each customer had a different price point to the different legal problem that they had. So if a customer was doing something about their status, they were willing to pay X. If the customer was talking about children, they were paying 2X. And if they were talking about their freedom, perhaps, or whether they could use or some home or real estate where they live, not investment real estate, it was 5X. So, and it's quite natural. You could read about Maslow, about safety and freedom and basic needs and so on. But I kind of didn't connect all the dots. I didn't connect the dots about psychology and hierarchy of needs with the pricing points, with the customer experience and the customer pricing levels. And in time, of course, I did. But what I'm trying to tell you is that a lot of failures then have to be done in order to connect all the dots together. And that's also a problem, the so-called free body problem or X body problem. The more variations, the more variables you have in your experiment or in your business, the harder it is to establish, to isolate which one is actually the most important and how much important it is. Because, in statistics, there's such a thing as, a variable that's very important, but there's also a coefficient of variability, I think, dependability. It just means that probably 3 or 4 or 5 factors account to most, or 80% of the results. So fail more often and you get better results. And if you're stuck in the limbo of not failing and not succeeding, you should go crazy. What does that mean? You should change a lot of things, because if you're repeating and just not getting enough results, you should change something and then repeat that change thing a lot of times so you get better results. You're obviously not in a place you want to be, is clear results, their feedback. So Hope that's understandable. Hope you liked it. Bye.